Hello. Today we're going to talk about the things that are wrong with Valheim. The things that the devs aren't considering properly with how to balance their game. Because a few days ago they did release a patch saying, hey, Motor and Yagluth were way too easy to kill, so we buffed them, gave them more damage reduction, gave at least Yagluth more damage reduction, and more health, so that they were harder to defeat. Because, as you'll see in a bit, you can kill Yagluth, well, you used to be able to kill Yagluth in literally the time it takes for him to spawn. But the problem with how they fixed the issue is a very early access fix. The way that early access is supposed to be, the game is new. They want to get a following. They want to get the money to be able to be like, okay, people want to play this game. And then once they find out that people want to play the game, they'll make the game better. Probably slightly different than their vision, because I'd like to state this at the beginning. A game developer can make the game exactly what they want it to be, okay? Like, I can make a game exactly how I want the game to be, but if nobody wants to play it, like, I don't make any money off of it, and the game fails. So I can't make a game like that anymore. And Dark Souls, this game, Valheim, very Dark Souls like. You can use a selection of weapons and get more powerful versions of that weapon, specialty versions of the weapons. There you can parry, you can block, you can dodge with invincibility frames through attacks. You have to fight bosses. You have to clear stages before you can get to the boss. Sometimes you have to get key items in order to fight the boss. These are all things that are fundamental to Dark Souls-esque games. In Dark Souls, you have to go through an area, maybe find the key to open the door to the boss, and then you fight the boss. And then once you've fought the boss, you get something that makes you more powerful, depending on how much work you put into it, than you were before you fought the boss. So the most obvious example of that is the souls you get every time you kill a boss. But something you don't notice is, let's say you fight a boss, more prevalent in Dark Souls 3, because you can turn boss souls into weapons very easily in that game, without going to NPCs that are really far away from your main area. You can kill the boss and then turn their soul into a weapon, and then you have the boss's weapon. But what do you need to do to make the boss's weapon better? You need to find Twinkling Titanite, and you need to upgrade the weapon. Same in this game. So let's say you just killed Bonemass. You then have the ability to go and get silver, more easily at least. You know where it is. So once you get silver, then you need to get more silver to upgrade. So even if you get the weapon at the Frostner level 1, you have to work to make it more powerful. So the game is very similar in that matter. But problems with balancing a game like this is you have to make it so that the boss works. So here we're going to see Motor. This is post buff. This is after the patch I am talking about that happened a few days ago. Motor has a few attacks, literally just 3 attacks, which I'll get into in a little while. But as you can see, the AI lands here, okay? Now, if you're standing, I'd like to, oh, sorry, let me go full screen. If you are standing on the rune, okay? The summoning rune, it is an unbreakable surface, and no enemies can attack you while you are on it without ranged attacks. You'll be able to see here. You ready for this? Keep in mind, this clip is a minute long, and we're 20 seconds in.
Bow is so broken.
Okay?
Look at how much stamina I'm using.
Motor is literally standing there like, how do I path to this person? The boss doesn't know how to fight me.
Stamina drain.
I am using a bow with level 100. I'm using the best possible gear for this specific run. But see, Motor can't get on top of the runestone.
Hiding him.
and
do anything.
doesn't do any damage to you. Like, literally nothing. Doesn't try to attack, doesn't use a single breath attack. Just,
And
there you go.
Loose all the time.
The boss did literally nothing there. That was 30 plus seconds of the boss doing absolutely nothing. The boss did no attacks or movement patterns to try to get to you and attack you. Whereas if you, an example later on in Dark Souls, using like a beginner boss, obviously, because it's just easy to get to, and I can control everything via like what level I am and how difficult it should be, you know. The bosses in polished games by AAA companies who worked hard to make the boss work and learned how to make bosses work, instead of just giving them bigger health pools, dealing more damage and stuff like that. They learned how to do it by making it so that if there's a problem, they fix the problem, instead of trying to make it so that, oh, you killed the boss too quickly, let's make the boss have more health. And this is a great example. So here, I'm going to show the video of me killing Yagluth first. So here is me summoning and killing Yagluth. Obviously, spoilers. There's spoilers for everything in this. I'll just have a warning at this front. So here I've summoned it. First thing first, okay? I'm totally fine with getting critical attacks on enemies that don't know you're there. But it's kind of broken when it's a boss. I'm just saying, backstabbing a boss, it makes sense if you can parry and then riposte a boss, because that takes skill. Backstabbing a boss is literally just like being like, if boss exists and you are better than average, boss only spawns with 90% health. Like, it takes no skill to do that. Like, let's watch this again. Like, I'm just standing here, and then I just... Ready? And the boss gauge appeared with 90% health. Like, that's a problem. And then here's the major problem with Yagluth. Okay? The boss isn't capable of attacking right now because he's still spawning in, but I can still hit him.
Holy cow.
Now the boss has spawned in and he's at 30% health. Imagine, instead of giving the boss more health or removing the fact that it was weak to frost, which fire is weak to cold, it's just science. You can't have fire when something is below freezing, unless it's special fire, and this guy is not special fire. If the boss wasn't vulnerable before it could attack you, I wouldn't have done 60 to 70% of his health. The problem wasn't that you could deal damage too fast. The problem was the boss couldn't hurt you. And then the boss is trying to path to me, which I think is hilarious. It's an AoE attacking boss, okay? And it tries to path to you, despite the fact that you are on top of him. It's just, like, you do too much damage too fast. Now here's the boss after it's been buffed. They removed the fact that the Frostnir did bonus damage to it, so I wasn't using the Frostnir for this. And then I switched over to it just to see how much.
Okay,
so hammers do a little bit more damage. So there you go. Once he attacks, he's lost 30% of his health. I did the same amount of damage in one hit before the boss was buffed that I could do in the entire spawn animation. And the simple fix that they just didn't think about because they thought, oh, people are killing the boss too fast. We need to make it so the bosses are harder to kill. The simple solution wasn't to hotfix it. This isn't a PvP game. You're not dealing with people paying money to fight other people. This isn't Tarkov, or even Dark Souls, for that matter. Nobody's being hurt by being able to kill a boss too fast. Instead of fixing the boss right away, well, not fixing it, instead of trying to put a band-aid over it and be like, yep, this is fine for now, they need to accept the fact that the boss is way too easy and try and figure out a real way to fix the boss's difficulty. And one problem that they don't really notice yet, bosses only have 3 attacks, and I'll go over this.
Defeated him by now.
But as you
Now
can see,
actually have
he's
to
trying to path to me when you're standing inside of
I
him. That's an
understand.
issue. But this is the best gear that you can possibly get in the game right now. As of right now. And this is how much damage I do to him. I unleashed how many bars of stamina is that onto him? And I've done to like 40% of his health.
Should make it more doable than this. Like, this is still pretty bad. Like, this is the best gear that you can get. And he takes, like, no damage from it.
And
like,
me, while doing this, I noticed
trying
this.
to speedrun this boss, like, from 0 to full.
That is a really good thing. Imagine this is your first time fighting the boss. You don't have this stuff because you didn't know that you had to over-prepare for it. You got fire resistance potions because you heard someone say, oh, it's a fire boss. So you happened to be resistant to fire burns, which deal 10 times as much damage if you don't have them, I know. And you didn't happen to go in with literally the best food possible. I have blood pudding, serpent stew, and pies. Lox meat pies. That's how much health I have. I think it's 300. And I've got this giant stamina bar. Like, imagine going into a boss without that. And if you had friends, there'd be the multiplayer scaling, which I'm fairly certain makes the boss even more difficult because 2 horses can carry more than one sort of thing.
You'd have to, like, farm so much.
But every single person on your team. Oh, and here's another issue I run into. This is just a bug. It's not even a bug. It's an oversight. As you could see, I made some mistakes. I've made some serious mistakes.
More.
Yeah, I missed it. I lost it. But I went to attack the boss, and because I wasn't at the same height as the boss, I couldn't hit it, despite the fact that like my attacks were right on top of him. That's not how you're supposed to make a boss balanced. We're gonna look at a beginner boss in Dark Souls because it's easy to get to, and it's easy to show that I haven't leveled my character up at all. And it's it's just more consistent. So this is some Dark Souls. Dark Souls 2, probably the best Dark Souls game. I was going to use a bonfire ascetic, which, if you don't know what that is, it lets you get to a more difficult version of the boss via the new game plus mechanic without beating the game first. But they patched it this week. Very convenient. They patched it this week, so you can't use the bonfire ascetic on a bonfire that doesn't have the final boss in the area defeated. So I didn't really feel like going through that. But as you can see, I have nothing but the default stuff for the warrior on, and some witching urns, which you get like right outside this door. I was gonna burn the ascetic, but it says I have to beat the main boss of this section of the game. We're gonna head down to boss, go down the elevator. As you can see, I'm level 13, which is the default level, and the cost of leveling up is the amount that it would cost if you just got this. My dodging stat isn't even that good. 105 is the best you can get, really. So I have very few iframes, just to show off like the balance of this. This is the first boss, obviously, and I'm comparing this to the 4th and 5th bosses in the game, but the devs have had the excuse of saying, this isn't endgame, guys. And when you say that, it's either early game or it's end game. There's no mid game in a lot of games. So early game boss versus not end game bosses, so early game bosses. So Last Giant, I mean, he is very simple. He starts out with that attack, and then if you stand at the front of his foot, he does this attack. Oh, he doesn't do that attack. I went too far back. But look how much damage I do per hit. I do that much damage per hit, okay? 113 damage. It is the first boss. The boss has attacks that I have to avoid. Obviously, like, for those of you who haven't seen this, like, this type of boss fight before, it is like the classic Dark Souls, just outmaneuvering the boss that you're fighting. Doing some strats here, obviously. But as you can see, boss hit me, okay? And because I had enough armor on, my armor actually reduced the damage I would take. If I was armorless, I would have taken damage to about here with that attack. But the boss didn't take very long. I mean, this entire clip is 2.5 minutes, and half of it's me seeing if I can't fight the boss a second time. Because my plan was to fight the boss a second time. The boss is jank. Like, a lot of Dark Souls bosses are jank, but they're beaten by the fact that they are well-designed jank bosses. So this boss is entirely different than any boss in this game, and we're gonna show off some problems with certain bosses. I actually don't have footage of this, but if you fight any boss, you'll know this. The boss only has 3 attacks. The deer, he has 3 attacks. He has his melee attack that has no lightning. He has his cone attack forward that is lightning, and he has his AoE explosion attack that is lightning. That is all the boss has, okay? Then you have the Elder. He has the Bring Up Roots attack, okay? Then he has the Stomp attack with his right or his left foot, doesn't matter, still the same attack, still the same damage. And then he has his if you're too far away, he throws roots at you thing. Then you have Bonemass. He has 3 attacks. He has Puking, which does poison AoE. He has spawning in mobs, which the one thing that happened with the patch is they changed Bonemass so that instead of spawning 4 mobs, he only spawns 2, which is very, very balanced, honestly. So he can spawn mobs as the second one, and as the third one, he does either a swipe with his right arm or his left arm. Same damage, same exact animation, just mirrored. 3 attacks, okay? Then you got Motor. Has the flying attack, which you can see here. This attack shoots out a whole bunch of icicles. Literally a copy-paste version of the Wraith, not Wraith, the dragon thing in the mountain biome, like the normal enemy. Literally a copy-paste of that, but with a whole bunch more things that spawn crystals. And then you have the when landed breath attack, that's like a laser beam attack. And then you have 3, I mean, they're the same thing. They do the same damage. Right swipe, left swipe, bite attack. Literally, they all do the same damage, and they all have similar animations. You know, the right and the left are the same. And then you have Yagluth. Literally a 3-hit wonder. Right arm, left arm, mouth attack. Right arm does an AoE explosion. Left arm summons meteors. Mouth attack is a laser beam. That's all they do. Every single boss in this game has 3 attacks. Solution to fixing the game, okay? I know the game's not broken. I mean, they thought the game was broken. Let's be honest. They thought, oh, you can kill bosses too fast. The game's broken. The real solutions, okay? Fix pathing. The deer has perfect pathing, dude. The deer will leave and come right back to you. Perfect pathing. Fix spawning. Make it so that the boss cannot be harmed until it knows that you exist. That way, spawn animation, you can't kill it with a critical attack at the start. Takes away all the skill-less damage that you can do. Add iframes to a boss spawn animation, so when the deer spawns in and it jumps on its hind legs, give it iframes. Heck, give it an AoE attack. So if you even go in to attack the boss, you get punished for it. So you're punishing people for taking advantage of things. Like Yagluth. Like let's look at this.
Ooh.
Remove this.
It does 90s.
Make it so that when he spawns, he just pools lava out of him, and there's fire everywhere, and you can't deal damage to him at all until he's spawned in and does a giant explosion attack. That adds a brand new move to him, using assets from another move he has, fixes the fact that you can deal damage to him before he can hurt you, and punishes people for thinking that they can deal damage to him before he can hurt you. That fixes so many of the issues they already had. Also, I have no idea what this stupid arrow is. and then you have uh motor. Uh like just add um more air attacks. So anytime the dragon isn't going to a spot in which they can shoot you with the air attack, make it so that they do swoops. Make it like a Dark Souls 2 dragon. Um, the whatever his name is, Sin, the dragon. The thing, like whenever it's in the air, it's swooping around, doing tons of damage. Like you have to avoid it. Whereas Motor, all you have to do is wait. Like Motor's pathing. Then you just wait until it gets there. You shoot it a few times. You dodge. You shoot it a few more times, and then you wait for it to leave, and go back to the same thing. Like,
Perfect.
and fix this. Why can't anything path to you on top of this runestone? If that's the case, make it like a defense bubble. So nothing can go in, nothing can get out. So if you try to fight from there, nothing happens. Or if you are fighting from there, things can still hit you. The boss, especially Motor, needs awareness. Motor and Yagluth need awareness. The other bosses are simple enough to where they have awareness. Like, the Elder is a perfect example of awareness. Let's say you're far away from the Elder. He knows, okay, the closest target's within this distance, I need to use a ranged attack because I can't stomp on him. So then he uses his ranged attack. Boss has awareness. It knows if you're close or far. Whereas Motor, I mean, you're standing right here. You're standing right here. The boss has so many opportunities to do the laser beam attack on you, but just decides not to because it thinks that it can path to you.
Look at how much stamina I'm using.
If the boss was spamming laser beam attacks on me, like, who cares if the boss happens to do the same attack 5 times in a row? If the boss is capable of doing more than 3 attacks, but chooses not to, that's better than a boss that can only do 3 attacks and doesn't know when to do any of them. Like, then, like, there's the special case. So, okay, so we've gotten rid of the fact that you can kill a boss instantly. Like, you can't kill the deer instantly anymore because you can't get a critical hit in the spawn animation. Okay, so now we've nerfed players a considerable amount now. Bosses still have weaknesses. I mean, we could go over weaknesses so much here. Like, oh, why doesn't Motor take bonus damage versus obsidian arrows instead of certain other arrows? Why doesn't Motor take damage from spears rather than literally nothing? Like, no critical attacks on Motor. Why doesn't poison do bonus damage? Like, you need to have reasons for the weakness to actually be a thing. Otherwise, you should just not have weaknesses. I mean, you know how weaknesses work, obviously. You implemented it perfectly with Bonemass. Skeletons are weak to maces. Maces do a decent amount of stagger damage, so it's good for crowd control. And Bonemass summons a crowd. So making it so that you have to use the weapon that's best suited for the case, it makes perfect sense. Whereas you have a case where you could use the same type of weapon on another boss, and it makes no sense. A perfect example of this is Yagluth is just a weird version of what's his face, the boss in Dark Souls 3. Let me find him. He's just a weirder version of Wolnir. Literally. He's wearing a crown too. Holy cow. They're both a perfect example of a bad design for a boss fight. Like, it's lackluster. Even if Wolnir had 1,000 more health, it'd still be lackluster. Like, the problem is you don't know how to design a boss right for this area. And I know, like, oh, but it's early access. It's not an excuse. Early access isn't an excuse. It's basically just saying hey, I know the game isn't finished right now. I'm willing to take advice to see what the players are willing to buy so that I can produce it for them. It's not, hey, I'm not done with this yet. I'm going to see how many people complain about something before I decide to fix it or remove it entirely. And I'm going to see what's wrong with my game. Like, in the developer's eyes, if you're early access, you should never think, how do I fix a problem now? You need to think, how will this work when the game is done? And then don't even care about fixing anything until you get to the point in which, okay, Yagluth has a weakness, it's frost. Cool. Yagluth has a resistance, it's fire. Cool. Let's wait until we've completed the entire game. Who cares about how easy it is? Once we know everything that's going to be in the game, we're going to balance everything accordingly. Imagine if Dark Souls started out thinking, they don't have early access, obviously, and that changes a lot of things with it. But imagine if the devs that assigned a boss and then decided how difficult it should be and how much health it should be, and then they ended up making that one of the first few bosses. So you end up having this insanely difficult boss early on. It'd turn into like, if you were fighting the final boss of a game and you were on starter gear, that like it'd be the equivalent of that, but you don't have starter gear. Like you're literally at a disadvantage with the best gear. Like this is the best stuff you can have and you do no damage. So I think something they should do to buff players' abilities. I don't care how much health the boss has, how little health the boss has. You should be able to parry and riposte any boss. Obviously, ripostes in this game aren't an animation like in Dark Souls. It's just bonus damage based on what weapon you're using. But adding an element to where skill-based gameplay thrives makes a game good. If you could get rewarded for actually blocking a boss at the perfect timing, like,
which I understand,
being able to block the boss at the perfect timing and get rewarded for it makes so much sense. Like, it just makes too much sense to not have in a game. I'm not saying, oh, make it so Yagluth was the way he was before. I'm saying, make it so Yagluth has a weakness that you've already put in the game. Make it so that Motor has better pathing and better awareness of self, like the deer boss has. Make it so that different weapons actually do different amounts of damage. Like here, let's look at this. You ready for this? I'm using max level sword, max level axe, max level hammer, max level bow, okay? Remember, this is a skeleton. This boss is a skeleton. If this was Dark Souls, I know, comparing a Dark Souls-esque game to Dark Souls again. If this was Dark Souls, I would deal more damage with the hammer than with the sword. If this was real life, I would deal more damage with the thing that breaks bones rather than the thing that cuts flesh. General physics, you know? Like, if you're trying to break something, use a hammer. If you're trying to cut something, use a knife. Can't cut things with a hammer very easily. Or it's not a hammer anymore. So I start 933 damage. Now, let's switch over. Where is it? Right about here. Okay. Now we're switching over to when the other guy wasn't nerfed. You want to see how much damage I do? 836 damage. Okay? I deal more damage on a critical attack with a sword than with a hammer. The boss wasn't broken at the beginning. The broken part was the fact that you could fight it right away. The boss was perfectly balanced. You can deal more damage with a sword than you can with a critical attack than a hammer with a critical attack now. That makes no sense.
This is literally just the peak performance, right?
So here we go. Third attack does 131 damage. I switched to the axe.
It does 90s.
173 damage. Like, it makes sense, but it's also somehow weaker in certain aspects. It doesn't make that much sense. So, you know, make it so that there are some attacks that are blockable and parryable, so you can punish a boss for having used certain attacks. Make it so that you are rewarded for good gameplay. And you have, like, you've fixed all the issues that you found with the game. And there you go. All it took you was making the game more Dark Souls when you chose to make a survival Dark Souls game. And Dark Souls isn't a bad game. I mean, it sold a lot of copies, got the best fan base ever. It has really crappy PvP combat, but it's not a PvP game. It's a PvE game. This is the exact same. Sure, you can put PvP on in this game, but it's a PvE game. So there's no reason to not add certain functions to this. But yeah, that's what I think about boss changes that happened recently and how to fix them. It's not that hard. I mean, you don't even have to add attacks. You just add things that reward players for being good and things that punish players for being bad. And then you have a really good boss fight. Quick little side note. Terraria is a great example. Also, Terraria is very similar to Valheim in many aspects. But Terraria has a great example. When they updated to their final version, 1.4, they added a new mode called Master Mode. Now, Master Mode was supposed to be a more difficult expert mode. So you could have like an even more challenging gameplay playthrough with more rewards and more cool stuff. It went well, but comparatively, compared to a mod called Calamity, which is the best overhaul mod, like hands down for Terraria. It adds so many new enemies, so much new like content, different boss fight mechanics. It actually adds a real master mode to the game, instead of just buffs. So let's look at which boss should let's look at Plantera, a mid to end game boss. So in classic mode, which is the easiest difficulty, you have max life of 30,000 with 36 defense and a damage value for melee of 50, okay? Then you go to expert mode. Everything is like doubled except the health. So the damage goes from 50 to 100. The life goes up by 12,000, so it's a bit harder. It lasts a bit longer. The defense is the same. Then you go to master mode, okay? The damage goes up by another double. So instead of 50, it goes to 150. So it triples the damage from normal mode and adds another 10,000 max life. Whereas if you look at Revengeance mode, which is the mode in Calamity here, Revengeance mode. Here we go. In the Revengeance mode tab, we have Plantera, okay? So Revengeance mode came out before before Master mode came out, and currently does not exist in the version of Terraria with expert mode. I know it's tough to keep up on every game type, but hear me out. So think of this as the modded master mode before the devs actually made it a thing. But Plantera's HP in Revengeance mode, like the fan-made master mode, is 96,000 HP. And now you're thinking, like, dude, like, what? Why on earth is it better to just give the boss more HP? I thought you were saying don't give the boss more HP. The boss gains a third phase. Now, if we look at the normal Plantera, ready? We look at the normal Plantera on expert mode. Okay? The boss only has 2 phases. Okay? Now, if we look at master mode, boss still only has 2 phases. So if Plantera only has 2 phases, what gives? So Revengeance mode already has a benefit versus the developed master mode, okay? Despite the fact that it has more HP, it has new content. And it adds seals that deal more damage, and are significantly faster than the phase 1. It deals 15% more contact damage. It shoots more spike balls, and it has different levels of thresholds and all this stuff. Okay? And then, it's just the boss fight has more content added for difficulty instead of just giving it more health. So this is a grand example. I mean, you can do this with any boss. Like, okay, Skeletron Prime. Dude, this guy turns insane. Like, you have to kill his arms to be able to defeat him, and his arms respawn after a certain amount of time. It's just insane. It's quite crazy. Like all the stuff that they added. I mean, even if we look at like the first boss, King Slime, teleports more frequently. He has more damage. He jumps and moves faster. So he doesn't just do more damage and have more health. He moves faster. He moves more frequently. He attacks more often. He gains a new ability. The solution to a boss being too easy by mod makers who are the ultimate like eye-opened geniuses of game development. I mean, there are many reasons why. Was to add new content. If a boss seems too easy, just add new content. If the content doesn't work out, just tweak the content until it works out. So if Yagluth doesn't do enough damage, make it so that he attacks more often. Which, no, don't make him attack more often. Make it, like, fix something other than give him more health, give him more defense, remove his weaknesses, make him immune to everything, make him do a billion damage. Like, try to add something new to the game instead of just buffing a number. Like, every boss made by, I mean, these guys are just geniuses too. The only reason why they have a hand over the normal developers of the game is if they wanted to add something that could easily get copywritten, they don't care, because the only benefit that a mod developer has over a game developer is they don't have to pay rights for anything because they're not getting paid for it. Now, you don't have to break rules to make a boss have new content. You just have to think harder about new content. It's not that tough, but like, look at all these changes, dude. Normal stuff has changes. Every boss, look at how many bosses have changes. There's new items, there's new stuff. This is all, like, this game is probably 70 something times more content than the default game, just because some guys decided the game needs more stuff in it. Now, I know it takes time to put stuff into a game. This mod has been out for years, okay? They've had so much time to add stuff, and they've been given ideas by the player base. So, just try to think about adding something instead of increasing the value